My name is Alex. I'm 33 years old. As I watched the groundskeepers lower my husband Leo's casket into the earth, a profound sense of isolation washed over me. I stood there utterly alone, surrounded by strangers whose faces were etched with a distant, hollow pity. Not a single member of my family had come, not my parents, not my sister, not even Maya, the woman I'd called my best friend since we were children. They had all made a different choice. My sister Chloe's lavish engagement party. Just as the first handful of dirt struck the polished wood of the coffin, my phone buzzed, a stark vibration against my leg. It was a message from my mother. We have to talk, now. Beneath it, a notification. 23 missed calls. If you're listening to this, what would you have done in my shoes? Please like this video and subscribe to my channel to hear the story of how I found the will to go on after being abandoned by everyone I ever loved. Leo and I first crossed paths in our second year of university. It was a classic cliche. He collided with me in the campus library, and my armful of art history books went scattering across the cold, tiled floor. But instead of offering a hurried apology and disappearing, he got down on his knees and insisted on helping me gather every last one. Then, as a formal apology, he offered to buy me coffee. That single cup of coffee bled into a long dinner, which then became a movie night. And from there, it blossomed into the most wonderful 5 years of marriage I could have ever dreamed of. Of course, our love story wasn't a fairy tale without its dragons. My family was against our relationship from the moment I mentioned his name. Leo came from a blue-collar family. His father was an auto mechanic and his mother a registered nurse. They were good, salt-of-the-earth people who had raised their son to have an unshakable moral compass and a powerful work ethic. But to my parents, who were obsessed with social standing and appearances, he might as well have been from another dimension. You could aim so much higher, Alex. My mother would sigh dramatically whenever his name came up. Think of your future. A man like that will never provide the kind of life you're accustomed to. My father was even more direct. The boy has no influential contacts, no inheritance, nothing to contribute, but a mountain of student debt. I tuned out their relentless criticism. Leo possessed everything that truly mattered. He was exceptionally smart, graduating with top honors in architecture while working 2 part-time jobs to pay his own way. He was kind, spending his weekends volunteering at the city animal rescue. And he loved me for who I was, without reservation, championing my own dreams and ambitions without ever once suggesting I should be someone different. We had a modest wedding. Leo and I paid for it entirely ourselves, turning down my parents' offer of financial help because we knew their money would come with invisible, yet unbreakable, strings. My family did show up, but their disapproval was a palpable cloud in the room, visible in their rigid smiles and their pointedly minimal interactions with Leo's family. My sister Chloe spent the majority of the reception glued to her phone, only looking up to make thinly veiled, sarcastic remarks about the simple venue or the unpretentious catering. Maya, my maid of honor and my rock since kindergarten, seemed to be trapped between 2 worlds. She had always been close to both me and Chloe, but as we got older, I felt her orbit shifting more and more towards my sister. On my wedding day, she spent far more time laughing at Chloe's table than she did standing by my side. Still, I was just grateful she was there, a fragile link to a childhood that felt increasingly distant. Our marriage was everything I had ever wanted. We scraped together enough for a down payment on a small condo. We both worked full-time, me as a graphic designer for a digital marketing agency, and Leo as a junior architect at a firm focused on sustainable design. We traveled when our tight budget allowed, explored our city on foot during weekends, and spent cozy evenings curled up on the couch, sketching out our future. We dreamed of having 2 kids, a house with a small yard for a golden retriever. They were ordinary dreams, but they felt extraordinary because we were going to build them together. The chasm between my married life and my family life only widened with each passing year. Every holiday dinner was a gauntlet of passive-aggressive comments about the size of our condo, the slow pace of Leo's career advancement, or why we hadn't started a family yet. Chloe, on the other hand, was showered with constant praise for her high-powered job in finance, her ever-expanding network of wealthy friends, and her parade of affluent boyfriends. "When are you going to make me a grandmother?" my mother would ask me pointedly at the dinner table. And then, not 10 minutes later, she'd turn to Chloe and coo, "Take all the time you need to find the perfect man, sweetheart. Your career comes first. Children can wait." The hypocrisy was so blatant it was almost comical. Leo would just reach for my hand under the table, and that silent squeeze of support meant more to me than my family's hollow approval ever could. Maya saw it all. She was there for every childhood slight, every time my own small successes were completely eclipsed by one of Chloe's. She remembered when my parents missed my high school valedictorian speech because it clashed with Chloe's equestrian competition. She was there when I got practical, sensible gifts for Christmas, while Chloe unwrapped designer handbags and diamond earrings. "Your family is really something else," Maya had admitted once after a particularly strained Thanksgiving. "But deep down, they love you." I just nodded, not really believing it, but thankful for her attempt to smooth things over. What I failed to see at the time was how Maya had slowly started to adopt their worldview, how she'd absorbed their perspective that I was, for some reason, simply less deserving of their time and celebration. Everything shattered 6 months ago. Leo had been dealing with persistent headaches and a bone-deep weariness we'd both chalked up to stress from a big project at work. That was until he collapsed one morning while we were out for a run. The diagnosis came down like a guillotine, stage 4 glioblastoma. The doctors gave him 6 months to a year, at best with aggressive treatment. Without it, maybe 3. My hands were shaking when I called my parents, my voice cracking as I tried to force out the devastating news. "Oh, that's just awful," my mother said, her tone conveying the kind of mild concern one might have for a distant neighbor. "Have you gotten a second opinion? These doctors are always so melodramatic." "Mom," I choked out, "we saw 3 different specialists. They all confirmed it." "Well," she said with an unnerving sigh, "sometimes these things just work themselves out. You have to stay positive. Oh, and before I forget, Chloe just called with the most exciting news. She thinks her new boyfriend is about to propose. We might have a wedding to plan." In the span of a minute, the conversation had pivoted entirely to Chloe's love life. My husband's terminal diagnosis was already a forgotten footnote. I ended the call feeling completely hollow, but somehow not surprised. When I told Maya, her initial reaction felt genuine. There was shock, there were tears, and there were fervent offers to help with anything and everything. But as the weeks turned into a month and Leo began the brutal regimen of treatment, Maya's presence became more and more scarce. The excuses were always plausible, always piling up. Urgent work deadlines, family commitments, a sudden flu. "I swear I'll visit this weekend," she'd text, only to send another message on Saturday morning canceling at the last minute. Through it all, Leo fought with a quiet courage that broke my heart. The radiation made him violently ill. The chemotherapy stole his hair and stripped over 20 pounds from his already lean frame. I took a leave of absence from work under the Family and Medical Leave Act, watching our savings evaporate as I stayed by his side around the clock. My life became a cycle of administering medications, trying to find food he could stomach, and cleaning up when his body rejected everything. I became his researcher, his nurse, his advocate, all while trying desperately to hold on to being his wife, not just his caregiver. And my family remained ghosts in my life. I'd send regular updates to our family group chat, which were met with curt one-word replies. Chloe never visited, not once. My parents came by for a single excruciatingly awkward 30-minute visit after I practically begged them, and they left with an almost visible sigh of relief. Maya managed to make it to the hospital twice. Both times she stayed for less than an hour, her eyes darting around uncomfortably at the medical equipment and Leo's visibly frail state. People react to crisis in different ways, Leo told me one night as I wept quietly by his hospital bed. Some people just can't handle seeing someone they care about suffer. Even as he was dying, he was still the one making excuses for the people who should have been holding us up. In stark contrast, his own friends were constant visitors. His parents even moved to our city temporarily, taking shifts with me at the hospital so I could get a few hours of sleep. The difference between his people and my people was a chasm I could no longer ignore. As Leo's health declined, another major announcement came. Chloe was officially engaged to Spencer, a corporate attorney from an obscenely wealthy family. My mother called me, her voice buzzing with an excitement I hadn't heard in years. "The engagement party is in 2 weeks, at the Grand Hotel. You have to be there, Alex. Mom, the doctors are saying Leo might not have 2 weeks. I can't leave him." A heavy, frustrated silence hung on the line. "Alex," she finally said, her voice laced with impatience, "your sister is only getting engaged once. Surely Leo would understand you taking one single evening to celebrate with your family. He's dying, Mom. My husband is dying." "Well," she huffed, "I guess we'll miss you at the party then. I'll tell Chloe you send your congratulations." The engagement party was scheduled for the exact same weekend the doctors had gently told me I should start preparing for the end, as if I could ever prepare myself for losing the love of my life at 33. Leo's decline was faster than any of us had anticipated. The last-ditch experimental treatment we had pinned our desperate hopes on failed catastrophically, triggering a massive seizure that landed him in the ICU for a week. His oncologist, Dr. Evans, a woman with kind, weary eyes, pulled me aside after they finally stabilized him. "I'm so sorry, Alex, but we're out of medical options," she said, her voice filled with genuine regret. "At this point, our only goal is to manage his pain and keep him comfortable. It might be time to start thinking about hospice care." Hospice. The word I had been dreading since the day he was diagnosed. It was the end of the fight. It was accepting the inevitable. It was the beginning of the long goodbye. That night, I slept fitfully in the stiff recliner next to Leo's hospital bed, just listening to the soft, rhythmic puff of his breathing, memorizing the rise and fall of his chest. I held his hand, which now felt so thin and fragile, the veins standing out like blue rivers under skin that was almost translucent. In sleep, the deep lines of pain around his eyes and mouth would finally relax, and for a few brief moments he looked like the young man I had married. Our savings were completely gone. The medical bills had become a mountain, even with insurance. My unpaid leave meant our income had dwindled to nothing months ago. Leo's parents had helped as much as they possibly could, but they were retirees on a fixed income. I finally swallowed my pride and sent my father a text, asking if they could possibly help with some of the mounting expenses. "We're a bit overextended at the moment with all the costs for Chloe's engagement party," he replied. "Maybe we can revisit our budget next month." Next month. By next month, Leo would be gone. During those final blurry weeks, I barely slept. When I did, it was in short, frantic bursts, jolting awake at the slightest change in the rhythm of Leo's breathing or a new beep from one of the monitors. I survived on stale hospital coffee and granola bars. I sent a text to my family group chat. "The doctors say it could be any day now. Please come." My mother's reply came an hour later, sending prayers. "By the way, did you see the pictures I sent of Chloe's engagement ring? 7 carats, can you believe it? Maya was no better. So sorry things are so hard right now. I've been helping Chloe with all the engagement party planning. I'm completely swamped. I'll try to visit soon." No one came. I just sat and watched as Leo, my vibrant, strong, brilliant Leo, faded away a little more each day. He tried to keep his sense of humor, asking me to sneak him his favorite chocolate milkshakes, which were strictly against the doctor's orders. He worried more about me than he did about himself. "Promise me you'll take care of yourself after I'm gone," he said, his voice a hoarse whisper during a rare moment of lucidity. "Find joy again, Alex. Don't let this break you." I promised him I would, even though I couldn't imagine a world with any joy in it that didn't also have him. The night before Chloe's big engagement party, Leo's breathing became shallow and labored. The hospice nurse gently increased his morphine drip, explaining softly that this was often the final stage. I called my parents one last time. "Mom, I think it's going to be tonight or tomorrow. Please, I need you here." "Oh, Alex," she sighed, the sound crackling with static and impatience. "We have guests arriving from out of town for the party. Chloe would be absolutely devastated if we weren't here to greet them." "My husband is dying," I screamed into the phone, startling the nurse. "Lower your voice," my mother snapped back. "You're being hysterical. People die, Alex. Your sister only gets engaged once." I hung up the phone, my entire body trembling with a rage so profound it felt like it might split me in two. My last hope was Maya. I tried her next. "Maya, please, I can't do this by myself." "Alex, I'm literally at the salon with Chloe right now. We're getting our hair and makeup done for tomorrow. I am so sorry, but I promised her weeks ago I would help with all the last-minute prep." Leo passed away at 3:27 in the morning. His parents were on either side of the bed, each of us holding one of his hands. He didn't struggle at the end. The pain medication kept him peaceful. His last conscious words to me were, "Thank you for loving me." I sat with his body until the first pale light of dawn crept through the window, unable to process that the person who was my entire world was gone, leaving behind only the shell that had held his beautiful soul. My in-laws held me, their own grief as deep as mine, but tempered by decades more of life's hard lessons. They helped me make the first impossible phone call to the funeral home we had reluctantly chosen weeks before. They stayed with me as the staff arrived to take Leo's body away, holding me up when my legs threatened to collapse beneath me. As the sun rose higher, I finally checked my phone. There were no messages from my family. They were probably still asleep, resting up for Chloe's big day. I sent a single stark text to our family group chat. "Leo passed away a few hours ago. Funeral arrangements will follow." My father was the first to respond. "Sorry for your loss. We will be thinking of you today." Not "we're on our way." Not "what can we do?" Just a sterile acknowledgement from a safe distance. My mother's was next. Such sad news. "Let us know the funeral details. Busy day ahead with party preparations." Chloe didn't reply at all. Maya sent a private message. "OMG, Alex, I'm so sorry. Do you need me to come over?" But before I could even begin to type a response, a second message popped up. "Actually, I promised Chloe I'd help decorate the venue this morning. Can I come by after the party tonight?" I didn't reply to any of them. There were no words left to say. The next 2 days were a blur of logistics and paperwork. Leo and I had managed to discuss his final wishes during one of his last lucid moments. He wanted to be cremated, a simple service with his favorite music, no religious ceremony. He asked me to scatter some of his ashes over the lake where we'd celebrated our first anniversary. The funeral director was kind but efficient as he walked me through the checklist of death. Casket for the viewing or a simple cremation container? Which urn? Would I like a memorial pamphlet? Did I want to place an obituary in the paper? Every question felt like a fresh wound, a decision that made the horrifying finality of it all more real. Leo's parents helped where they could, but respected that these choices were mine to make. As his wife, I chose a simple maple casket for the viewing, a ceramic urn the color of his eyes, and approved an obituary that felt painfully inadequate to capture the essence of a man so wonderful, whose life was cut so short. I scheduled the funeral for Tuesday, giving my family 3 full days after Chloe's Saturday engagement party. Surely, I thought, surely they would come now that their precious celebration was over. I created a social media event page with the funeral details and tagged every single family member. I sent a group text with the same information. I even sent a direct email to my parents and Maya with a map to the funeral home. The replies were slow and non-committal. From my mom, "We'll do our best to be there. Chloe is just exhausted from the party, but we know this is important too." From my dad, "I'll check my calendar and let you know." From Chloe, a single thumbs up emoji, nothing more. Only Maya's response offered a sliver of hope. "I will absolutely be there early to help you set up. Just tell me what you need. Love you." I wanted to scream. My husband was dead at 34. My world had imploded, and my sister was tired from a party. My father needed to check his calendar. Maya's promise was the only thing I held on to, though years of experience had taught me to keep my expectations low. On Monday, I went to our closet to pick out Leo's burial clothes. I chose the navy blue suit he had worn at our wedding. It hung loosely on the hanger where it once fit him perfectly. I ran my hand over the fabric, remembering how devastatingly handsome he'd looked that day, how his eyes had filled with tears when he saw me walking down the aisle. Maya called me that evening. "Alex, I am so sorry about everything. That party was just draining. I feel awful that I couldn't be there when it happened. But I promise you, I will be at the funeral first thing tomorrow. Do you want me to come over tonight? We could open a bottle of wine and just talk?" "No," I replied, my voice flat and lifeless. "I just need to be alone tonight. I get it." "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow then. 8 a.m. sharp, right? I'll bring coffee." For the first time in days, a tiny flicker of relief sparked in my chest. At least one person from my old life would be standing by my side. Tuesday morning was gray and overcast, the sky weeping a soft drizzle. It felt appropriate for the bleakest day of my life. I mechanically put on the simple black dress I'd ordered online, applied a touch of makeup to hide the dark circles under my eyes, and drove to the funeral home. Leo's parents were waiting for me, and his mother wrapped me in a tight, fierce hug. "We're here for you, sweetheart," she whispered, "today and always." I checked my phone. It was 8:15 a.m. No sign of Maya. No messages from anyone in my family. I sent a quick text to Maya. "Are you on your way?" At 8:30, the funeral director approached me gently. "Mrs. Hayes, we should probably prepare to receive guests. Would you like a private moment with your husband first?" I just nodded, following him into the viewing room. The casket was flanked by flowers, mostly from Leo's colleagues and friends. A huge, beautiful arrangement from his parents. A small bouquet of white roses and forget-me-nots, his favorite, that I had picked out myself. There was nothing from my family. Not a single flower. Not even a sympathy card. By 9 o'clock, the first guests started to arrive. Leo's co-workers, his college roommate who had flown in from the West Coast, our neighbors from the condo. They all expressed such genuine sorrow, sharing stories about Leo that made me smile through the tears. At 9:30, there was still no Maya, no family. My phone was silent. The service began at 10 o'clock. I sat in the front row, wedged between Leo's parents, painfully aware of the row of empty seats we had saved for my family. The celebrant spoke beautifully about Leo's life, his passion for his work, his character. His friends shared funny, touching memories. His boss talked about the impact of his designs, how Leo's work would continue to make communities better for decades to come. When it was my turn to deliver the eulogy, I almost couldn't stand up. Standing there, in front of a crowd of Leo's people, not my own, the absence of my family felt like a gaping physical wound. But I had promised him I would be strong. I unfolded the speech I had written and began to talk about the man who had completely changed my life, the man who showed me what unconditional love really was. As the service ended, my phone vibrated. It was a social media notification. Chloe had just posted a new album of photos from her engagement party. I should have just ignored it, but some masochistic part of me needed to look. And there they were, My parents, beaming with pride next to Chloe and Spencer. Maya, her head thrown back in laughter, raising a champagne glass for a toast. Everyone was dressed in their finest, celebrating as if it was the only thing happening in the world. And for them, I realized, maybe it was. The timestamp on the photos was from the day before, not Saturday. The party had clearly stretched into a multi-day affair. While I was picking out my husband's urn, they were at an expensive brunch. While I was writing his obituary, they were popping more champagne. We drove to the cemetery for the burial. As they lowered his casket into the ground, I stood at the edge of the grave. Leo's parents had stepped back, giving me a moment for a final, private goodbye. The soft rain mingled with the tears, streaming down my face. I whispered the words I had said to him every single night for 5 years. I love you more than yesterday, but less than tomorrow. As the first shovelful of dirt hit the casket with a dull thud, my phone lit up. A message from my mother. We need to talk now. I glanced at the notification screen. Beneath her message, it read, 23 missed calls. From my mom, my dad, Chloe, and Maya, all within the last hour. I switched my phone off and just stood there, watching as they buried my husband. The condo felt cavernous and silent when I returned from the cemetery. Leo's parents had offered to stay, but I insisted I needed to be alone with my grief. I wandered through the rooms like a phantom, touching his belongings, breathing in the faint scent of him that still clung to his pillow. When I finally powered my phone back on, it exploded with a cacophony of buzzing and beeping. Voicemails, texts, a flood of missed call alerts. I started with my mother's text messages. Alex, we are so sorry we missed the funeral. Chloe wasn't feeling well this morning after the party. Please call us. We're worried. And then from my father, your mother and I feel terrible. We wanted to be there, but circumstances made it impossible. We couldn't just disappoint Spencer's family by leaving the post-engagement brunch early. Maya's texts were the most frantic. Alex, I am so sorry. I overslept after the party. Are you getting these? Please answer. I know you must hate me. I have no excuse. Please let me explain. I'm coming over later. Chloe had sent a single dismissive message. Sorry about Leo, was really tied up with engagement stuff. Hope the funeral went okay. I dropped the phone on the couch, too emotionally drained to even think about responding. What could they possibly say? What justification could there be for missing my husband's funeral to attend an engagement party that had apparently become a 3-day bender? As I numbly made a cup of tea, an email notification pinged on my laptop. It was from Ben, one of Leo's colleagues who had been at the funeral. The subject line was just, "You should see this." I opened it and found a video file attached. Ben's message was short. I was at the Grand Hotel for a business lunch yesterday. Your family was on the terrace celebrating. I thought you should know what they were saying. I'm so sorry, Alex. With a hand that trembled uncontrollably, I clicked play. The video showed the hotel's sun-drenched outdoor terrace, adorned with flowers and balloons. My family was seated at a large table, champagne glasses in hand. Spencer was standing, finishing a toast. The video was shot from a distance, but the audio was sharp. After Spencer sat down, Chloe stood up, swaying slightly, clearly intoxicated. I just want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate us, she slurred, beaming, especially my parents, who threw this amazing party even with all of my sister's latest drama. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter went through their group. Seriously, though, Chloe continued, Alex always has to have some crisis going on. First, she marries that broke architect against everyone's advice, and now she makes his whole dying thing the center of attention, right during my engagement. My mother patted Chloe's arm, a placating gesture, but she didn't correct her. My father just nodded along. Thank God you all knew how to prioritize what really matters, Chloe said, raising her glass. To family who shows up for the important things? The camera panned slightly, and I saw Maya laughing as she clinked her glass against Chloe's. Alex always was the queen of exaggeration, Maya added, her voice loud enough for the camera to pick up. Remember when she thought she deserved to be valedictorian? Or when she acted like her college graduation was such a huge deal? More laughter. Then I heard my mother lean in towards Maya. She called last night saying Leo was dying right then, and we all needed to rush to the hospital, the night before Chloe's party. The timing was just so inconsiderate. I slammed the laptop shut, a wave of nausea washing over me. They hadn't just missed the funeral because they were careless. They had deliberately chosen to keep partying, actively mocking my grief. My fingers, trembling, scrolled back through my text history with Maya. 3 weeks ago, she had asked about Leo's prognosis. I had told her what the doctor said, that he would likely pass very soon, possibly within a matter of days. The very next day, Chloe announced the date for her engagement party, landing it squarely in that window. It wasn't a coincidence. Chloe had intentionally scheduled her celebration for a time when she knew my husband would be dying, and my parents and my best friend had gone right along with it. I found myself scrolling back further, years back, through conversations, and the pattern was sickeningly clear. A lifetime of dismissals, of my achievements being minimized, of Chloe's every whim being prioritized. Leo had seen it from the beginning. "They don't treat you with basic respect, Alex," he'd said early in our relationship. I had always defended them, always made excuses. As darkness fell, another text arrived from my mother. "Your father and I want to discuss the family trust with you. We're making some adjustments and need your signature. Can you come by tomorrow?" I called my colleague Sarah, who had become a close friend during Leo's illness. She'd been at the funeral and had offered to come over if I needed anything. "Do you know anything about family trusts?" I asked when she picked up. "My husband, Mark, is an estate lawyer, actually. Why?" "My parents want me to sign something to change theirs. Today of all days." Sarah's voice grew cautious. "Alex, do not sign a single thing without reading it. Especially not now when you're so vulnerable. Do you want Mark to take a look at it for you? Would he mind?" "Not at all. He always says grief and legal documents are a toxic mix." Before I could reply, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Maya standing on my porch, clutching a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of wine. "Someone's here." "I'll call you back," I told Sarah. I considered not answering, but a cold, hard part of me craved the confrontation. I opened the door but stood in the doorway blocking her entrance. Maya's eyes were puffy and red. "Alex, I am so sorry. Please, just let me explain." "Explain what, Maya? That you chose a party over my husband's funeral? Or that you were laughing while my sister mocked him as he was dying?" Her face went white. "What are you talking about? I saw the video, Maya, from the brunch yesterday. I heard every word you said about me. I was just playing along. You know how Chloe gets if you don't agree with her." "No, I don't know," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "because I don't betray the people I love just to stay in someone else's good graces." Maya's expression hardened. "You've always been so judgmental, Alex, so holier than thou. Chloe's right, you do make everything about you." "My husband died," I shouted, the sound raw and ragged, no longer caring if the neighbors heard. "He died, and not a single one of you cared enough to be there for the single worst moment of my life. We did care. She stammered. "You just had more important things to do, like drink champagne and laugh at my pain." "Alex, please," she begged. "We've been friends for over 20 years. Don't throw all of that away." "You threw it away," I said, the calmness returning. "Not me. Please leave. Your family is worried. They sent me to check on you, to bring you to their house. I am home," I said, "and they are not my family anymore. Neither are you." I closed the door on her sputtering protests, leaning my forehead against the cool wood as wrenching sobs finally tore through me. The last illusion had been shattered. I was completely and utterly alone. That night was the darkest of my life, even darker than the night Leo died, because on that night, I had still believed there were people who would catch me. Now I knew the truth. The next morning, I woke to more missed calls and a text from my father. "We're coming over at 11. We need to settle this." I didn't reply, but I knew they'd show up anyway. For the first time, I was grateful Leo had insisted we install a security camera. At 10:45, I got a call from Mark, Sarah's husband. He'd reviewed the trust documents my parents had emailed me overnight. "Alex, I'm glad you sent this to me," he said, his tone grave. "This amendment completely removes you from the family trust and redirects your entire share to Chloe. They need your signature because the original trust stipulated an equal distribution. They wanted me to sign away my inheritance the day after burying my husband. The sheer calculated cruelty of it was breathtaking. Do not sign it," Mark advised. "In fact, I'd recommend you get your own attorney to handle all financial dealings with your family from here on out." At exactly 11 o'clock, the doorbell rang. The camera feed showed my parents, Chloe, and Maya all standing on my porch. I took a deep, steadying breath and opened the door. "Finally," my mother said, brushing past me into my living room. "We've been trying to reach you for days." "It's been 24 hours, I corrected her. "Leo has been dead for exactly 48 hours. "Don't be so dramatic," Chloe said, rolling her eyes as she flopped onto my couch. "We all knew he was sick. You've had months to prepare. My father, at least, had the decency to look ashamed." Maya hovered by the door, refusing to meet my gaze. "Why are you here?" I asked, remaining standing as they made themselves comfortable in the home Leo and I had built. "We're worried about you," my mother said, her expression of concern completely failing to reach her cold eyes. "And we have some family business to attend to," my father added, patting a leather briefcase. "Just a small matter of updating some paperwork. The trust documents," I stated calmly, "the ones that disinherit me." Their collective shock was almost funny. "How did you—" my father sputtered. "Those are private family documents. Yes, concerning my inheritance. Did you honestly think I would sign them without reading them, without having a lawyer look at them? You had no right to show those to an outsider," my mother snapped. "And you had the right to skip my husband's funeral for a party?" An icy silence descended. Chloe broke it with a scoff. "Are we still on that?" "It wasn't a party, Alex. It was my engagement celebration, a once-in-a-lifetime event, and Leo's funeral wasn't?" My voice was steady, but inside I was shaking with fury. "People die every day," Chloe shrugged. "I'll only get engaged once." "Actually," I replied, a cold fire spreading through me. "Statistically, given your track record and personality, you'll probably get engaged several times." Chloe's face turned a blotchy red. "How dare you?" "I saw the video," I said, turning to face all of them. "From the brunch. I heard what all of you said about me, about Leo." My mother's face went pale. "What video?" I took out my phone and played it, turning the volume up. I watched their expressions shift from confusion to embarrassment to outright defiance as their own cruel words filled my quiet living room. When it finished, my father was the first to speak. That was taken out of context. "What possible context," I asked, "makes any of that acceptable? Mocking my dying husband, laughing about my grief? Alex, we didn't mean—" Maya started. "Yes, you did," I cut her off. "Every single one of you meant every single word. This is who you are. This is who you have always been." I walked over to my laptop and opened a folder. I've been doing a lot of thinking since Leo got sick, about our family, about how I've been treated my entire life compared to Chloe. So I started making a list. I turned the screen towards them, showing a spreadsheet. Here are all the birthdays and Christmases where Chloe got designer gifts and I got a savings bond. Here are all my school events you missed to attend one of hers. Here are the dozens of times my accomplishments were brushed aside while hers were put on a pedestal. 30 years of a consistent, undeniable pattern. This is insane, my mother scoffed. "You're acting like a petulant child keeping score." "No," I said. "I'm acting like someone who is finally seeing the truth. You never loved me the way you love her. I was an afterthought, an obligation. And now I realize you don't love me at all." "Of course we love you," my father insisted. "We're here, aren't we? You're here with paperwork to cut me out of my inheritance the day after my husband's funeral, which none of you bothered to attend. That is not love." Chloe stood up, her patience gone. "Can we just get this over with? Alex, sign the papers. It's not like you need the money anyway, not with your husband's life insurance payout." The casual brutality of that statement seemed to stun even my parents into silence. "Get out," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "All of you, get out of my house." "Alex, be reasonable," my mother began. "Get out!" I roared, years of suppressed anger finally erupting. I have been reasonable my entire life. I accepted being second best, being overlooked, being dismissed. Not anymore. I strode to the door and wrenched it open. As of this moment, I have no family, no parents, no sister, and no childhood best friend. You are all dead to me. "You can't be serious," my father stammered. "We're your family." "Family doesn't do what you did," I shot back. "Family shows up. Family supports each other. Family loves without condition. You have failed on every single count." Maya approached me, tears streaming down her face. "Alex, please. I know I messed up beyond words, but 20 years of friendship has to count for something. It counted for nothing when you chose a party over my husband's funeral, when you laughed at my pain, when you called me dramatic for grieving. I will do anything to make it right," she pleaded. "There is nothing to make right," I said. "There is nothing left. Please, just go." One by one, they filed out. My parents looked shell-shocked. Chloe looked indignant. Maya looked broken. As my mother passed me, she grabbed my arm. "You will regret this," she hissed. "When this grief nonsense passes, you're going to need us." I gently but firmly removed her hand from my arm. "No," I said. "I won't. Goodbye, Elizabeth." Using her first name felt like the final, definitive cut. Her face crumpled for a second before hardening into a mask of pure fury. She turned and walked away without another word. As I closed and locked the door on my former life, a strange and profound sense of peace settled over me. For the first time, I had stood up for myself the way Leo had always encouraged me to, the way he would have been proud to see. That evening, I found a therapist who specialized in grief and family trauma. I called Sarah and thanked her and Mark for everything, and I started researching support groups for young widows and for people estranged from toxic families. My new life was just beginning, built on the ashes of everything I had lost. But for the first time, it was a life where I would be putting myself first. The weeks that followed were both the hardest and the most freeing of my life. Grief would ambush me at the most unexpected times. I'd find myself sobbing in the grocery store because I saw Leo's favorite brand of coffee, or breaking down while folding one of his old t-shirts that still carried his scent. My therapist, Dr. Anya Sharma, helped me understand that I was mourning two profound losses at once: my husband and my entire family of origin. "It's complex grief," she explained. "The betrayal by your family has complicated the natural mourning process for Leo. Your loss was disenfranchised. It wasn't acknowledged or supported by your primary support system, which creates a separate layer of trauma." 3 weeks after the funeral, I forced myself to go to my first Young Widows support group meeting. Walking into that room was one of the most difficult things I'd ever done. Admitting I belonged there made Leo's death feel real in a new, permanent way. The group was a mix of women, but what united us was the shared, specific pain of watching a partner fade away, the bureaucratic nightmare of death certificates and insurance claims, and the clumsy, well-meaning questions from outsiders. There, I met Claire, 36, whose husband had died from a sudden heart attack a year prior. She had a sharp, cynical wit that I immediately connected with. The first 2 months, I basically lived in his old bathrobe and ate cereal for dinner, she told me over coffee. Then one day, I realized he would have been so mad at me for just giving up. So I started doing one adult thing a day, just one, taking a shower, cooking a real meal. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I adopted her one adult thing approach. Some days, that was all I could manage. On other days, I surprised myself. I went back to work part-time, blessed with a boss who gave me the flexibility I needed. Leo's parents checked in constantly, never being pushy, just making sure I knew they were there. His mom sent care packages with homemade soup and silly novels. His dad helped me sort through the mountain of insurance paperwork. "You will always be our daughter, Alex," his mother, Sharon, told me during one visit. That doesn't change just because Leo isn't here. Their unwavering kindness only sharpened the contrast with my own family's cruelty. My parents tried calling a few times, leaving voicemails filled with platitudes about healing the family rift and moving forward. I never responded. Chloe sent one text, "You're being ridiculous. Call mom and dad and apologize." Maya was more persistent, sending long emails and even handwritten letters begging for another chance. I read them, but they stirred nothing in me but a dull, hollow ache. Dr. Sharma helped me navigate my feelings about their attempts to reconnect. "Setting a boundary isn't the same as holding a grudge," she said. "You're protecting yourself from people who have proven they can't be trusted with your vulnerability." 4 months after Leo died, I sold our condo. Every corner held a memory, both beautiful and heartbreaking. I found a smaller place across town, near a park we used to love. While packing up our bedroom, I found a sealed envelope in Leo's nightstand. It was a letter he had written in his final weeks. "My dearest Alex," it began, "if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I am so sorry I had to leave you. Loving you was the greatest privilege of my life." He wrote for 3 pages, sharing memories, encouraging me to find happiness again, and expressing his absolute faith in my strength. "You are so much stronger than you know," he wrote. "I've watched you bend but never break under the weight of your family's cruelty. Now, I hope you'll finally use that strength for yourself, not just to endure, but to thrive. Build a life filled with people who see your beautiful heart, the way I always did." I clutched the letter to my chest, sobbing, but also feeling an incredible connection to him. His words became my anchor. 6 months after losing him, I started volunteering at the hospital where he was treated, sitting with other cancer patients during their chemo infusions. It was painful at first, but it slowly became healing. Through volunteering, I met a couple, Elaine and Frank, who had lost their own son to cancer years ago. They took me under their wing, inviting me for Sunday dinners, treating me with a parental love that was effortless and unconditional. "Grief connects people in strange ways," Elaine told me. "It's a club no one wants to join, but once you're in, you find family you never knew you had." Around the same time, I started writing a blog about my experiences with grief and healing. A small but supportive community formed around my words, another unexpected source of connection. My in-laws visited for the 1-year anniversary of Leo's death. We went to the lake and scattered some of his ashes, just as he'd asked. The day was bright and clear. "He would have been so proud of you, Alex," his mother said, her arm around me, "of how you've carried on." I could only nod, a lump in my throat, but for the first time, the grief felt manageable. It was a part of me, woven into the fabric of who I was, but it no longer consumed me. That evening, I got an email from my mother. Subject, family emergency. The message was short. "Your father had a heart attack. Chloe's wedding is off. We need help with medical bills. Please call." My finger hovered over the delete button. A quick online search confirmed her story. My father had indeed suffered a heart attack, though it seemed less severe than her email implied. Another article mentioned that Chloe's fiancé, Spencer, had called off the wedding amidst a fraud investigation at his law firm. For a fleeting second, I considered calling. Then I remembered the video, their laughter, their absence, their greed. Instead, I looked up financial assistance programs and anonymously forwarded the links to my mother's email address. Life moved on. Claire from my support group told me she'd run into Maya at a coffee shop. She asked about you, Claire reported. Said she misses you but gets why you cut contact. Apparently, she and Chloe had a massive falling out, too. I felt a distant twinge of sadness, but no desire to reconnect. Some bridges, once burned to the ground, should stay that way. As the seasons changed, so did I. The woman who had stood all alone at her husband's grave was still there, but she was no longer the whole of me. I had built a life Leo would have been proud of, surrounded by a family of my own making. I still talked to him, especially at night, telling him about my day, my small victories. In my heart, I could still hear his encouraging voice. "You were right," I whispered to his picture on my nightstand one night. "I am stronger than I knew." On the second anniversary of Leo's death, I drove to the cemetery. I placed fresh flowers on his headstone and sat on the small bench I'd had installed. 2 years, my love," I said aloud. Sometimes it feels like yesterday and sometimes a lifetime ago. So much had changed. I had a small house with a garden, a promotion at work, and friends who remembered Leo's birthday and our anniversary, who understood that my grief was a part of me, but not all of me. I hadn't spoken to my parents or Chloe in those 2 years. As I sat there, a familiar figure walked up the path. It was Maya. She stopped when she saw me, looking hesitant. "I can come back later," she said quietly. "It's okay," I replied, surprising myself. She placed a small bouquet next to mine. "I come every year," she admitted. "I didn't expect to see you." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in 2 years. She seemed different, quieter. "How have you been?" I asked. "Okay." Chloe and I had a huge fight after all that. She expected me to take her side, and I couldn't. It made me see how toxic our whole dynamic had become. She told me Spencer had dumped Chloe as soon as his legal trouble started, proving he was only ever interested in her family's money. My parents, saddled with medical debt, had to sell their large house. "I am so sorry, Alex," Maya said, her voice thick with emotion. "Truly, deeply sorry. Not just for the funeral, but for years of being a bad friend. For getting so caught up in your sister's world that I forgot what was real." I studied her face and saw genuine remorse. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "I don't expect forgiveness," she added. I wanted you to know that I know how badly I failed you. Losing our friendship was the biggest mistake of my life." We talked for almost an hour, acknowledging the pain and betrayal. She had been in therapy, too, working through her own issues. "Leo would be amazed at how you've rebuilt your life," she said, gently touching the headstone. "He gave me the courage to demand better," I replied. We exchanged numbers before we left, no promises made, but a door that had been sealed shut was now slightly ajar. That night, I had a small dinner party. My new family, Claire and her new partner, Elaine and Frank, Sarah and Mark. As laughter filled my home, I felt Leo's presence in the warmth of it all. Later, I sat in my garden under the stars. I had lost a husband and a family, but I had survived. I had learned that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who holds your pain, who loves you without conditions. I learned that setting boundaries is an act of self-preservation, and I finally discovered the resilience Leo always saw in me. I carried his love not as a burden, but as a gift. Looking up at the sky, I whispered, "Thank you for loving me, Leo. I'm building a beautiful life just like you wanted." A soft breeze rustled the leaves, and for a moment I felt him there with me. Not alone. Never truly alone. If you are watching this and struggling with toxic family or with grief, know that healing is possible. It's not a straight line, but you can build a new life filled with real love. Have you ever had to set boundaries with people who hurt you? Share your story in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more stories about resilience. Remember, the family you choose can be more powerful than the one you were born into. Thank you for listening. The end of the story.